there's a huge political amount of capital in the telling of history. Alan Munslow said that history is never innocent storytelling. It's a primary vehicle through which power is distributed and used. And so the whole notion of political identity and ideology and who the United States is as a nation plays into how the story is told and who has gotten to tell the story. And so the idea of letting Indian people tell that story themselves, I think, is powerful and progressive, but it's the right thing to do. And I think it's everybody's right to hear that history. Often in college, you'll hear students say, "How come I never knew this?" They find out other parts of history that they were prevented from learning or kept from learning, or teachers didn't know in their K-12 experience. And then they hear this when they come to college. And it's almost like a mind-blowing experience for somebody that's lived in this country all their life, maybe 2 or 3 generations, and then they hear the story of U.S. history, and then they get to college, and all of a sudden they find out that a large portion of that was myth or untruth. And so I think that's an undoing, and it's kind of a reckoning and a coming of age. With the quincentenary of Columbus, there was a lot of revisionist history, and there was hope, I think, from Indian communities. Okay, this is going to trickle down into mainstream textbooks, and so students will be getting a larger picture, more voices will be included. It'll be a more inclusive history. But that didn't happen. Governor Schweitzer, I guess, was visionary or forward-thinking in his commitment to let tribes tell their own story, particularly if you look at how history has been told and institutions and who has power to write history, who has power to determine what's important to know. And a lot of that is done in higher education institutions. I think in Montana, there's a unique situation happening, unique from the rest of the country. And so we really have an opportunity to be leaders, which for Montanans is unusual. And so it's an opportunity to set an example about social justice, about restoration, about healing, about being intentional and deliberate in what we do as educators, and realizing our power and recognizing it, that we have a huge amount of power in what we teach and how we teach it and who we include or who we exclude. And so the state of Montana has made this decision of integrity to recognize the original people of this place and to include them in the telling of history. And then Governor Schweitzer took it a step further, not only to include them, but to give them a place at the table to say what story will be told. It's a unique opportunity for non-Indian people to hear a much different narrative that's their history too, that they have the right to know too. And part of that intention of those constitutional delegates was being good human beings with each other, and that as we understand and know more about each other, we appreciate each other more. And I think it's the same with the land. As we know and understand the land and the relationship and the beauty of this place where we live, the better we're going to treat it and take care of it. And so knowing about those places from a tribal voice and a tribal perspective offers a richer narrative to non-Indian people. And it's their right to know the history of this place. And they live in this place. And so it's their history. And they need to know it. They have a right to know it. It's kind of like being literate about the place where you live. So it's a grand experiment. I think it's a very grand experiment. And it's horrible and wonderful both at times, because there's a lot of resistance. And sometimes I'm stunned still at the level of ignorance about even basic facts. But then that kind of motivates you more to tell the story, to make sure that it's told, and that I hope young people would hear lots of voices and stories and be able to put them together themselves and make their own meaning of who they are in this place at this time. So it's a grand experiment that's really important, and it makes me proud to be from Montana. I never thought I'd say that, to be a Montana citizen. And the amazing thing is that all those delegates, none of them were Indian. In 1972, and think about that time, and think about how the rest of the country looks at rural Montana. So backward, those people in Montana. And then you look at what those people did, you know, to talk about the original people of this country and their cultural integrity, and to make a commitment in the state constitution to them was really remarkable. Really remarkable. You want to talk about visionary, good human beings, you know, that's what those constitutional delegates were. So then it's left up to us